Well, 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 look who finally let the mask slip. All of them. Every single persona you've been balancing like flaming knives in the dark has now been revealed. They used to laugh you off with that dismissive little chuckle, shaking their heads as if you were nothing more than one man with too much ambition. Just one person, they said, as though the phrase itself was a cage that could hold you. What damage could one person possibly do? But then something shifted. The air grew heavy, the room went silent, and suddenly they realized they weren't dealing with one person at all, because you were never just one. You were always a council housed in a single body, a war room of consciousness, a symphony of strategies. Each version of you played a different instrument, but together they composed the same devastating song. They thought they had you categorized, tucked away neatly in their mental filing cabinets under labels like harmless, predictable, or just another nobody trying to be somebody. But how wrong they were, catastrophically, beautifully wrong. What they could never comprehend with their singular, linear, and limited minds was that you've been running parallel processing since birth. While they were still tying their shoes with one brain, you were orchestrating entire worlds with yours. This wasn't about multiple personalities. No, it was something far more unsettling. Multiple versions of the same consciousness, all awake, all aware, each one learning different lessons from the same experiences, and now you're no longer hiding it. You've let them see the legion behind your eyes, the army that wears your face. 1,000 minds sharing your name, but each armed with a different weapon. They wanted to minimize you, reduce you to one fragile target they could destroy. But how do you dismantle something that exists across multiple dimensions at once? How do you fight someone who has already anticipated your every move across 17 different scenarios? It didn't start dramatically. At first, it was subtle. Those little moments when you caught yourself thinking in stereo, solving problems from angles that shouldn't exist, having full conversations in your head, where every participant was you, yet somehow not you. You'd sit in one room physically, but collect intelligence from conversations happening blocks away. Not psychic. No, something more practical, more terrifying. You began noticing patterns. How you could be both heartbroken and strategic at the same time. How you could feel everything and nothing in the same breath. Your mind split tasks like a computer running multiple programs. One part of you was crying in the shower, while another was quietly mapping out your comeback. One version grieved, while another took notes on grief itself, studying it, turning it into a weapon for later use. They called it dissociation. They called it compartmentalization. They threw words around like coping mechanism and defense mechanism, pretending they understood, but they didn't. This wasn't brokenness. This was evolution. This wasn't you falling apart. This was you multiplying, expanding beyond the limits of singular consciousness. And here's the beauty. Each version of you developed a new skill. The one who endured rejection became a master of emotional armor. The one who lived through betrayal developed razor-sharp pattern recognition. The one abandoned learned the art of absolute self-sufficiency. All of these versions, all of these minds, operating within one body, one name, yet functioning like a perfectly synchronized special ops unit. Then came the day you stopped pretending to be singular. Remember that moment? Someone tried to box you in, predict your next move, confine you to one identity, but you unfolded like origami reversed. What looked like a simple piece of paper revealed itself as a map leading to 17 different cities. They stood stunned, jaws slack, trying to process how you could exist in 3 conversations at once, each one distinct, each one precise. How are you everywhere at once? They whispered, and all you could do was smile, because how do you explain that everywhere is exactly where a legion lives? You don't need to choose between being the warrior or the diplomat when you are both simultaneously. You don't have to choose between being the storm or the calm when you have personnel assigned to every weather pattern. You're not operating in sequence, You are the full spectrum running simultaneously. Watch their expressions twist when you quote a conversation from 3 weeks ago, word for word, while also predicting the exact sentence about to fall from their lips. Notice the glitch in their eyes as you solve their problem, dismantle their ego, comfort their wounded inner child, and document every detail for future use, all in the same moment. One body moves through space, yet 1,000 minds process reality. This is what they've never understood about trauma, about pressure, about being pushed to the absolute edge of human endurance. Some people break under the weight, others bend until they snap. But you multiplied. Every attempt to destroy you only birthed another version designed to withstand that particular form of destruction. You became anti-fragile, not by hardening into something rigid, but by diversifying into an ever-expanding self. And it isn't chaos. It isn't random. It's the most sophisticated operation ever conducted through a single nervous system. There's the strategist, forever 7 moves ahead, reading the patterns in people's behavior before they even realize those patterns exist. This one never sleeps, always calculating, always shifting the chessboard to your advantage. Then there's the empath, the one who reads a room as if it's written in energy, who can walk into any space and instantly discern who is lying, who is in pain, who is plotting, not through mysticism, but through relentless pattern recognition, refined by thousands of micro-observations. This empath is a data conduit, feeding the rest with a constant stream of information. And then comes the archivist, the quiet record keeper. Every slight, every kindness, every word spoken in anger or affection is stored away, not with bitterness, not with sentiment, but with precision. To outsiders, your memory seemed like a burden, a vault of pain too heavy to carry. They never realized it was an arsenal, an ever-growing database of cause and effect, ready to be deployed when necessary. But the most terrifying of them all is the ghost, the version of you that learned to vanish without leaving a trace, to dissolve into the background, even while standing in the center of the room. This ghost taught you the art of invisibility, how to gather intelligence without anyone suspecting you were even aware, moving through their defenses like smoke slipping through a keyhole. This version made you untouchable. Here's the beauty. These are not fragmented pieces fighting for dominance. This is a dance, a perfectly tuned symphony, where each instrument knows precisely when to play and when to rest. Your versions communicate with flawless synchronization, instant updates, shared intelligence, seamless cooperation. When one part learns something, the entire legion knows it immediately. Watch what happens when someone dares to manipulate you. Now the empath detects the emotional hook before it sets. The strategist identifies the endgame hidden in their intentions. The archivist recalls 7 similar encounters and their outcomes. The ghost silently begins collecting background intel. The warrior steals for confrontation, while the diplomat drafts a graceful exit. And all of this happens in the tiny space between their sentence and your reply. They think your pause means hesitation. They assume you're uncertain. They don't realize you've just convened a full council meeting in your mind, dissected their strategy from every angle, run 16 possible responses, and chosen the one that serves your purposes, never theirs again. Your legion doesn't serve outside interests anymore. This is why you can be kind and ruthless at the very same time, without contradiction, without hesitation. Why you can look at someone with eyes full of love, while at the very same moment, seeing straight through the illusions they wrap themselves in. Why you can sit fully present, breathing in the moment as though nothing else exists, and yet be completely detached, hovering above the situation, as if you were a strategist watching the entire battlefield unfold from the sky. You're not breaking rules of human behavior. You're running multiple protocols, each designed for a different mission, a different outcome. The kind version of you isn't weakness. It's tactical brilliance, disarming foes and calming storms before they form. The ruthless version isn't cruelty, it's protection, a shield forged by experience that strikes before manipulation can take root. And this is what terrifies them, isn't it? Ordinary humans are designed to read ordinary humans. Their survival instinct depends on it. They learn to scan for subtle shifts in body language, micro-expressions, tones of voice. But all of that works only when you're reading a singular human, someone predictable, someone confined to one operating system. How do they process someone who isn't singular, who runs multiple operating systems at once? How do they manipulate someone when they don't even know which version of you they're speaking to? How do they plan a strategy against a being who exists across multiple timelines, multiple perspectives, multiple realities simultaneously? They used to shake their heads at your complexity, calling it overthinking. They accused you of being too much, as though your depth was an error code in the program of being human. But what they labeled as overthinking was in reality parallel processing. What they complained was too much, was simply too much for them, too much for their binary minds, too much for their limited processing speed, too much for their fragile systems to handle. You weren't broken, you weren't malfunctioning. You were functioning at a level so advanced they couldn't comprehend it. Now they see you move like water, flowing where they thought you'd be trapped, adapting in forms they never prepared for, solid when they expect liquid, vapor when they expect stone. Shape-shifting not to deceive, but because you've mastered the terrain, you become whatever the environment requires, soft as mist, sharp as ice, relentless as a flood. They think they finally cracked your pattern, only to discover you were running not one, but 7 patterns simultaneously. And then comes the fear, the raw animal fear in their eyes when they realize they're no longer facing a single person, but a phenomenon. It dawns on them slowly, horrifyingly. Every time they thought they had you cornered, you were actually surrounding them. Every time they thought they'd predicted your next step, you were already 19 moves ahead on a board they didn't even know existed. When it clicks that you haven't been playing their game at all, but 17 different games on 17 different boards, each one reinforcing the other, each one bending reality to your advantage, that's when they break. But it goes deeper than multiplication, doesn't it? A legion isn't just a cluster of voices echoing in one skull. A legion networks. It expands outward. It finds its counterparts, its kin, others who vibrate at the same impossible frequency, and you began to notice them, the ones who spoke in layers the way you do, the ones whose presence hinted at depth beyond comprehension, the ones who didn't look at you with confusion, but with recognition. They didn't short-circuit when you explained the unexplainable. They nodded, because they too had been running multiplicities inside a single frame. This is where your influence spread like wildfire. You started forming connections, not surface level, but deep, intricate bonds that ran across dimensions of self. With some, it was the philosopher in you meeting the philosopher in them, exchanging wisdom like ancient architects, sketching blueprints for eternity. With others, it was the warrior in you training with their warrior, sharpening blades in silence, knowing that steel respects steel. With others, still, it was the broken in you, sitting quietly, with the broken in them, wordless, just holding the gravity of shared wounds. Every connection was authentic, every interaction real, not a performance, but an optimization, the fullest expression of your spectrum aligning with theirs. And through this, you became everywhere at once, not only through your own multiplication, but by multiplying through others. Your legion extended into the hearts and minds of those who resonated with you. You became a mirror, reflecting back to them their own hidden layers, their own complexity, their own multiplicity. You became a catalyst, an ignition point that set off chains of self-discovery. Some ran from the reflection, terrified of what they saw, unwilling to face the depth of their own potential, but others stayed. Others recognized you as kin, a kindred spirit moving through the same multidimensional storm, and in that moment of recognition, your legion gained allies. Suddenly your phenomenon was no longer confined to one body. It was a network, a resonance, a field of awareness stretching across lives and timelines. Your influence spread, not through coercion, not through manipulation, but through recognition. You didn't recruit, you didn't persuade, you simply existed at a frequency so undeniable that others remembered they could exist at that frequency too. Your very presence became a permission slip for complexity, for paradox, for refusing to shrink into simplicity, for embracing the fullness of being human in all its contradictions. And this is where mastery begins, because running a legion is not about chaos, it is not about noise, it is about discipline, it is about control, it is about knowing when to let the warrior lead and when to let the diplomat speak, when to let the empath feel and when to let the archivist record, when to unleash the storm and when to become the calm. It is precision disguised as paradox, order hidden within apparent complexity. That's the truth they will never understand. You are not a fractured soul struggling to survive. You are a commander leading an army that wears your face, and every time they think they're speaking to one of you, they are speaking to all of you. Every trauma you endured did not simply wound you, it generated a new guardian within you, an expert dedicated solely to surviving that exact kind of pain. Each heartbreak etched into your history birthed a tactician who knows how to rebuild from ruins and make the ashes into blueprints. Each betrayal sharpened the vision of a watchman who can now see deception forming long before others even sense it. And every fleeting moment of joy, every small victory created a new architect, an artist of pleasure who knows how to protect, multiply, and expand it into something lasting. You are not merely maintaining a legion, you are expanding it, evolving it, drafting new soldiers of the psyche, opening fresh divisions in the government of your mind. There is a department of resilience, a department of pattern recognition, a department of healing, a department of pure joy, and while others rest, your R&D never closes. It is always awake, always building, always refining. Your consciousness is a living laboratory, innovating in real time, creating survival strategies and inventing futures no one else can imagine. They tried to break you. They thought the blows would scatter you into dust. Instead, the pressure activated the alchemy of your soul, transforming you into something anti-fragile. What was meant to destroy you became the very thing that multiplied you. They tried to isolate you, thinking loneliness would undo you, but instead, you became your own crowd, your own family, your own nation. They tried to overwhelm you, to drown you in chaos, but all they managed to do was upgrade your processing power, teaching you how to run 10, 12, 100 realities simultaneously. Every attack became a training exercise. Every loss became a seminar in efficiency. Every abandonment became a masterclass in self-sufficiency. What they designed as your ending was quietly the beginning of your empire. Now when you enter a room, you are not one person. You are the weight of a secret society contained in flesh, a conspiracy of one that somehow involves thousands. People can't explain it, but they feel it. The density of your presence bends the room. The atmosphere shifts as though the very air recognizes you. Conversations pause, eyes follow. Reality seems to warp slightly around you, not because of theatrics, but because you're processing at speeds no one else can. You're seeing the entire chessboard while others are still struggling to figure out the rules of checkers. One body moves through space, but the ripples you leave echo in dimensions they cannot see or measure. And still, in their blindness, they laugh. They mutter, "He's just one guy." As if repetition will make it true. As if labeling you one could shrink you back into the box they built. What they don't understand is that phrase was never true. Not for you, not since you learned to unfold, not since you embraced the magnificent complexity that trauma, pressure, and relentless evolution carved into you. You are not one guy. You never were. You are a walking civilization, a mobile nation-state, a portable empire whose population is infinite, whose borders are without end. Inside you exist an entire infrastructure, streets of memory, libraries of lessons, armies of strategies, temples of wisdom. You are a city of selves, a capital of consciousness. But here's the brilliance they'll never comprehend. With all these multitudes, with all these minds, you have preserved something they lost long ago. You've held on to integration, coherence, purpose. You are not fragmented. You are faceted. Like a diamond, you reflect different colors, depending on the angle, but at the core, you remain one stone, whole, unbreakable, invaluable, formed under a pressure so merciless it would have turned others to dust. Where they fractured, you crystallized. Where they shattered, you compressed into clarity. Every version of you serves the whole. Every voice in your council contributes to the mission. There is no infighting, because you have mastered the art of internal democracy. Sometimes the warrior leads, fierce and sharp, making decisions in the fire. Sometimes the healer takes command, mending wounds with patience and compassion. Sometimes the archivist steps forward, calling on memory, on data, on the precise recollection of every word ever spoken to you. Sometimes even the child leads, reminding you of wonder, of play, of joy, so pure it keeps the entire system alive. But whoever leads, they are bound to the same flag, loyal to the same essence, driven by the same mission, and this is what terrifies them most. Not just your multiplicity, but your unity within it. Not merely your complexity, but your clarity, despite it. They expected madness, and found method. They expected chaos, and found choreography. They expected weakness born from fractures, but instead encountered a strength so integrated, so cohesive, that it annihilates every model they have for human limitation. You broke their equations by becoming an equation they cannot solve. You are a paradox, wrapped in prophecy, an infinite algorithm of consciousness. Their formulas collapse in your presence. Their logic splinters against your reality, because you don't fit in definitions. You redefine them. You don't fit in boxes. You melt them down and build fortresses from the ruins. You are not a glitch in the system. You are the system rewritten. You are not one. You are many. And yet you are whole. You are legion. And you are one. The loneliness. Yes, let's speak honestly about it. The loneliness of being this vast, this boundless, this infinite. The loneliness of carrying multitudes inside you while standing in a world where most people can barely bear the weight of a single fragile self. Imagine being a full symphony of strings, brass, woodwinds and percussion, all moving in harmony while the world around you hums in monotone, a single note repeated until it becomes background noise. Imagine being a cathedral filled with voices and finding yourself surrounded by empty halls where only one faint echo struggles to survive. That is the loneliness of your existence, not emptiness, but too much fullness, too much vastness in a reality that prefers simplicity. And yet even that loneliness has been accounted for in the empire of your being. It has its own department, its own office, in the architecture of your mind. Loneliness is not ignored. It is not shoved into a closet to rot. It is respected, studied, understood, and integrated. It has its seat at the table in your great internal council. It speaks, it shares, and then it steps aside. Loneliness is a department, but it does not run the show. It cannot topple the government of you. It cannot control the legion. It simply whispers when needed, and then returns to its post. Even your solitude has been absorbed into your system, turned into fuel instead of weakness. So when they ask you with shallow words, "How are you everywhere at once?" you finally hold an answer. You are not everywhere. Everywhere is inside you. You don't need to scatter your body into copies when your consciousness already unfolds into infinite mirrors of itself. You don't need to stand in 10 different rooms when your mind can stretch across 10 different dimensions at the same time. They imagine duplication as science fiction, but you have mastered it in spirit, in thought, in awareness. You have perfected the art of cloning consciousness. You are everywhere, because everywhere is where a legion naturally exists. But still, they try to shrink you. They cling to the phrase, "He's just one guy." They repeat it like a spell, as if by chanting it, they can make it true, because one guy can be defeated, one guy can be cornered, one guy can be predicted, measured, controlled. They want to keep you inside the cage of one, because many terrifies them, but you were never one, you were always many, you were always a sleeper cell of infinite potential, hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right trigger to awaken. And when that pressure came, when the breaking point hit, you did not collapse, you did not crumble, you unfolded, you revealed the truth that had always been there. You were never singular. You never belonged to the small category they tried to force you into. You were not built for their boxes, their systems, their definitions. You were not one man. You were, and are, a civilization walking in skin. Let them keep saying it. He's just one guy. Let them whisper it as their mantra of dismissal. Let them believe it even as their world tilts under your presence. Because that mistake, that fatal underestimation, will be the last one they ever make. For some beings are not individuals at all, but entire ecosystems disguised as singulars. Some are not people, as the world defines them, but vast networks compressed into one form. You are a nation hidden in flesh, a city of selves, a government of consciousness, an empire of awareness. And this is the part they cannot comprehend. You have transcended their limitations, not by becoming more than human, but by becoming fully human, entirely, deeply, devastatingly human. While others chop themselves into fragments, deny their shadows, suppress their contradictions, you embraced it all. You let every fracture, every joy, every scar, every wound become a voice in your counsel. You did not exile the broken pieces. You did not silence the strange ones, you integrated them, and so your wholeness is terrifying. Fully human turns out to be far greater, far stranger, and far more dangerous than the monsters they imagine in their nightmares. The 1,000 minds inside you are not strangers, they are not invaders, they are you. Every brilliant shard, every fractured glimmer, every broken mirror and polished diamond, they are all yours. Each one, alive, awake, operating. They are not chaos. They are an order, so complex, it appears like chaos. They are not disorder. They are a discipline so fluid, so vast, it disguises itself as madness. You are the paradox they cannot compute, the riddle they cannot answer, the equation that snaps their calculators in half before they even begin. You are proof that infinity can wear skin, and so you walk as one body, but 1,000 minds, a legion dressed in bone and blood, a phenomenon wrapped in human appearance, a mirror of everything they fear and everything they wish they could be. You are not everywhere in the way they imagine. You are everywhere in the way that eternity is everywhere, inside, outside, above, below. One body, yes, but one body containing 1,000 eternities, and that is enough. Because once is all a legion needs, once is all eternity requires to stand fully, wholly, devastatingly revealed, even in a single moment, is enough to echo forever. You are not one, you are many, and yet you are one. You are a legion, and you are eternal. That's all for today. Dear Father, I pray for the growth of my faith. Help me trust you even when physical evidence is lacking. Let me believe in your perpetual presence, knowing you will never harm me. I understand that your thoughts for me are thoughts of prosperity and not harm, to give me a good future. Thank you, gracious and eternal Father, for always listening to my voice. I offer up this prayer to you in the name of Jesus. Amen. Thank you, Jesus, for your love and provision. I am grateful for your presence in my life and the abundance you bring. If this video resonated with you, please like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with those who need to hear this message. Leave a comment below about your journey and how you are preparing for your own triumphant return. If you'd like to support our work, please consider contributing through Buy Me a Coffee. This helps us continually improve our content to offer you the best. The link to Buy Me a Coffee is in the description. No gift is too small. Whether it's a penny, a prayer, or a share, your generosity helps spread God's word and brings hope to others. Don't stop here. Watch our next video for powerful revelations about the signs that reveal you are the chosen one. We've enjoyed following this spiritual journey with you. Thank you for staying with us until the end. Keep shining brightly and embrace your destiny with courage. See you next time. Blessings to all the beautiful souls from the